can't fix what you don't say out loud, or rather, what you won't say out loud. Talking to ourselves is something that has really been stigmatized in our society, especially as we get older and become adults. However, that is one of the central themes of a book that I recently read by Vasavi Kumar, and it's titled Say It Out Loud. And honestly, it hit and resonated with me much harder than I expected that it would be. Because as someone who spent her entire life living by other people's expectations, silencing myself to please others and not offend anybody, this book really sort of gave me the permission to use my own voice again in order to connect with not only my audience on LinkedIn and YouTube, but across all spaces. In not a perfect manner, not polite manner, but living through my truth. And you can do the same as a healthcare professional when you work with your patients. So in this video, I'll be integrating the key messages of the book Say It Out Loud by Vasavi Kumar, and how the lessons that I learned in the book can be applied by you as a healthcare professional from an English as a second language background when you're working with your patients. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me every week and your ongoing support, feedback, comments, and views and likes. My name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. I am a communication coach, and I essentially help English as a second language healthcare providers who speak English at an intermediate level. They are either working in a country where English is the first language, or they're working in an environment, so in a place of employment, where English is the native or the first language. That's what the background of their patients is, and they work with patients on an everyday basis, and they want to not only improve their language fluency, but also take their communication to the next level and get a good understanding of what it is that patients look for when they want to work with, or they prefer or choose a certain healthcare provider, and communication is the tool to do exactly that. And the aim of my coaching is to help healthcare professionals like yourself receive glowing testimonials, reviews, and feedback from your patients so that you attract more of them and really enjoy and reap the benefits of the career that you chose in healthcare. So a few months ago, I reviewed Charles Duhigg's book, Super Communicators, and quite recently I read Vasavi Kumar's book, Say It Out Loud. And Vasavi is someone who I've been following quite a bit since last year, because we both appeared in the same podcast on child-free living, and that's how I got in touch with her. And I found her work really not only groundbreaking, but very fascinating and intriguing. So in a nutshell, Vasavi is a visibility coach, and she helps entrepreneurs and creatives find their voice and really speak their truth, and in a way that really aligns with them and not make it all performative, so that they can not only attract clients and thrive in different areas of their life, but also live the life that they subconsciously desire as well. So what is it that I learned in this book? Some vital lessons that not only resonated with me, but also something that you can take away as healthcare professionals from ESL backgrounds and apply that when communicating and working with your patients. So to begin with, the power of saying out loud. Now, obviously, journaling, reflecting, voice notes, something that I do from time to time, as well as thinking without any distractions, all of them are absolutely fine, nothing wrong with them. But the problem is, when you do this, the chance of it registering and integrating into your nervous system and your brain is not as effective as what it would be when you speak these words to yourself out loud, usually, as she recommends, in front of the mirror. And that actually really heightens your level of self-awareness and what you stand for, what you believe in, or what you don't believe in. And you learn more about yourself and how you want to show up in the world. And self-awareness is one of the very fundamental parts of what my coaching program entails. It's one of the very first things that you learn before you cover anything else. So when you say something out loud, you hear yourself. So you separate your thoughts from who you actually are and what you say to yourself. And basically what happens is, as a child, for example, there were times, or even in my 20s, there was elevator music playing in my head that said that I'm not good enough or I'll never be taken seriously. This was not my voice, it was the voice from all the layers of conditioning, upbringing, culture that both me and Vasavi grew up with. So we both are from the same cultural background, and we faced very similar challenges, which is why this book, I could relate to whatever she went through and how I found my voice as well, and how I'm now showing up on LinkedIn and YouTube the way I am. So there were, I could draw a lot of parallels in that process. So going back to the voices that were in my head, they were just in my head, and there was not something that I really believed in, but I was just letting whatever it is that my past experiences, my parents, my school, the society, media, and the culture and religion, really what they dictated to me, that's what was actually occupying, that was being echoed in my head. And that's what actually was telling me to tone it down, be nice, and not offend people or make them uncomfortable. And that is what you as an ESL healthcare professional may find yourself going through quite a lot. You might be silencing yourself when interacting with your patients because you are worried that you're going to feel misunderstood, you're going to sound unprofessional, and you're going to offend someone or make someone uncomfortable. But the truth is, what you don't say out loud is what will end up controlling you silently and insidiously. And that silence seeps into your consultations when you're indecisive, when you don't show that you have authority or conviction, and there's hesitation, and there's obviously a lot of self-doubt. Your patients can see that, and you may think that they're not going to take me seriously if I don't do this, but actually doing this is going to be the part of the problem. So that's a big vital lesson that I learned from the book. Secondly, unlearning toxic self-talk. So Vasavi obviously talks about the concept of inner voice, which significantly entails the constant critic that tells us that we are not good enough, and it leads to what we call imposter syndrome. So she encourages in the book to literally talk back to that voice out loud. So when you're having a dialogue within yourself that's saying that, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm not good enough, I'm not experienced enough, I'm not professional enough, you should be able to vocally push back at that dialogue in your head by saying it out loud, that's a lie, that thought doesn't belong to me, and I'm doing my best, and my best is good enough. When you say it, you rewire your brain and your nervous system, which you don't really do as well when you're doing voice notes or journaling or something like that. Now, in the context of healthcare, when you're working with patients as an ESL healthcare professional, you might make a very small, very insignificant language mistake during a consultation, and which could be grammatical, which could be your accent, it could be pronunciations. These are the things that people from ESL backgrounds, they get really, really hung up on, which I have always said is really unnecessary. So, and that language mistake that you make, that really dictates, how your day and how your weeks and months go for the rest of your life, because if you don't silence it. And you are led to believe by this inner critic that you're not fluent enough, therefore you sound unprofessional. If you don't vocally challenge that inner voice, it will show up again and again in your tone, your body language, and your lack of confidence. But if you do say it out loud, that you are learning, that you're growing, that you're practicing, you're developing, and your English fluency is not a reflection of what your knowledge, experience, expertise, and professionalism is, you're not just correcting your words, you are actually reclaiming your voice. On that note, even the few chapters that I talked about were very similar to past videos I've done, particularly the one where Vasavi talks about embracing and talking about your triggers out loud. So one of my videos from last year talks about being aware of your triggers as well as your patient's triggers, and how you can become more aware of that, of yours, and how you can let that be the guiding force when to be more cognizant and very in tune with what your patients may be triggered by. So I will leave that video towards the very end of the video, so do go and check that out. And of course, the other one that I really found fascinating was the concept of resistance. That again, that she makes, there's an entire chapter on resistance, and the one quote that really stood out to me was, "Resist the urge to resist from your resistances." Now this may sound like a bit of a tongue twister and a mouthful, but basically essentially the thing is, the resistance may be your inner critic. The resistance may be the thing that stops you from taking that step to speak your mind, to ask for what you want, to set boundaries. So you have to sort of really quell and kill that resistance and not let it overpower you. And that again is something that really resonated very well with me. Emotional expression, that again is something that it ties in not only very well with self-expression, which I talk about quite a lot over here, but also how instead of really suppressing our emotions, something that we tend to do all the time, is you speak your emotions. And for example, and also, the cultures that me, Vasavi, and probably you have grown up in, stoicism is what is rewarded. And, just keeping the peace and not really expressing yourself in front of people is what is rewarded. And you're expected to just be calm, collected, and diplomatic. But that really is a source of disconnection, because you're going to be because if you express your emotion, you're going to be seen as too emotional, obviously, but too intense and too full on and just too much, especially if you're a woman. But the reality is emotions are information, energy in motion, and data. And when you suppress them, you lose valuable information, and information that can really be the game changer in the way that you communicate with and relate to your patients. For healthcare professionals, this is where the gold mine lies, because patients don't just communicate with words, they communicate with emotion, and you are going to see a lot of invulnerable emotions as a healthcare professional who works with patients day in and out. So if you numb your emotions or disconnect from your own emotions, you're going to miss theirs, and that will inevitably lead to the breakdown in the relationship. So the next time a patient expresses frustration or fear, don't rush to fix that emotion or solve that particular problem. Acknowledge it, validate it, and say something like, I can understand and imagine, or I'm aware of how difficult this must be for you. And that is one of the best ways to show empathy instead of sympathy or being performative, and you're being present with your patients. And it all starts with being emotionally honest with yourself. A huge major one is untangling cultural conditioning. And because Vasavi and I grew up in a very, very similar manner, in a similar culture with similar beliefs, and basically the voices that we both internalized from our family, community, religion, and tradition were very similar. Where conformity, obedience, silence, and that's what was expected of us, especially as women. And being assertive, speaking your mind, and asking for what you want was just considered to be a letdown and a selfishness and a sign of disrespect. And something a lot of ESL healthcare professionals can really relate to as well, because you have been told to not talk back, to be humble, and really to respect authority. But when you bring in those beliefs into healthcare communication, especially in systems where, that's more Western and Anglo-Saxon, it's going to make you come across as being uncertain or passive, or you sort of become like a pushover, that means anyone can walk all over you. Which means inevitably that your patients are going to start doubting your authority, not because you lack knowledge, but because you are not yourself. You're not aware of yourself. You're not really showing any belief in yourself, and you're not claiming your voice. So your cultural conditioning is not your communication style. So yes, you can respect aspects of your culture that you were raised in, but at the same time, let that not be the reason that sort of creates that gap or breaks that barrier between your patient and yourself. And you can be respectful and assertive, you can be humble and confident, and kind and direct. So as long as you balance them well, they are powerful combinations. Setting boundaries and speaking your truth. This is something that she covers in the very final chapters, where you talk about, claiming what you want, desiring what you want, saying those things out loud. And I've talked about boundaries many, many times on this channel. And saying no, expressing what you can and can't do is not being rude. You're being honest, transparent, and responsible. So that means as a healthcare professional, don't overpromise and underdeliver, especially when it comes to patient outcomes. Don't take on an emotional labor that isn't yours, and don't say yes to every single patient's demand just to avoid conflict. And don't say yes out of guilt, because that's going to end up making you feel resentful and exhausted. But when you speak your boundaries out loud, calmly, clearly, without any apology, patients will respect you more, because that clarity is what they like to see, and that's going to build the trust they have in you. So let's talk about, just to sum all of this up, how to live and speak out loud as a healthcare professional. So it means that you bring the same awareness and honesty to your patient interactions that you bring to your self-expression or your self-reflection by saying out loud. So saying something like, I don't have the answer to a question that a patient asks you yet, but let's work on it and find out together. Now, this means that you're being transparent, not performative. It means you're communicating with confidence that doesn't come from language perfection, but from self-awareness and integrity. And essentially, your voice is your power, your words are your tools, and your truth is your foundation. So don't whisper what you have in mind, don't water it down, say it out loud, not literally loud, but be, say it with awareness, conviction, and confidence every day with your patients, your colleagues, and most importantly, yourself. So I would highly recommend reading this book. This is not a very intense read like Super Communicators, and this is something that I'm sure that anyone from a non-Anglo-Saxon background can absolutely relate to it very well in many different ways. I would recommend the audiobook because I personally love Vasavi's really deep, strong, powerful voice. So I absolutely loved, that's why I got the audiobook, and I loved hearing that and really absorbing the information from there. And I would highly recommend reading the book. And tell me, if you have read the book, what are some of the lessons in the book that you learned that you can put into practice or are putting into practice as a healthcare professional. Just stay tuned for similar videos like this and on other content that I post about communication for English as second language healthcare professionals in native English speaking spaces. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Leave this video a like if you like it. And as always, thank you very much for your time, attention, and presence. I shall see you next week.